introductions again? Because I was really good on mine.
No, I'm recording now. No, I'll record the last two introductions. Jenna, so I assume you might have to just sort of, if somebody pops into your office hours, you'll just go ahead and take care of that.
Yeah, I'll listen to you guys and kind of watch that one and just see if anybody comes to that. But I'm an instructor at LA Film as well. I teach digital production design and whatever other course I get the opportunity to teach. And I'm also half admin, so I do a lot of stuff with digital filmmaking events like this, the Facebook group, and just some other random tasks. So thanks, guys, for coming. I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Cool. All right, Eric, you're next. You want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Benson. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm a current student at LA Film School and looking forward to working in the film industry, hopefully one day, and really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Ebony.
Hi, my name is Ebony, and I'm currently a student, and I've had some of the teachers that's already introduced themselves, and I'm currently taking, what am I taking? I'm taking the first audio course, I believe.
Great. Yeah, that's probably what, DFM 220, Audio Production 1.
Yes, I'm taking that one.
Great. All right, Carlos.
Yes. How you doing, John?
Yeah, just say hello and just kind of let us know what course you're taking right now.
Oh, my name is Carlos Turpo. I'm in digital filmmaking, and I'm on the editing 1 course. I think it's DFM 260, I think. I don't forget that number.
Cool. Well, Carlos, thank you for joining us. There's one more person who doesn't have a name, just a number. It's 702-812-6950. Can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, Mr. John. This is Mr. Anthony Hamilton again. I was having issues with the audio on the desktop, so I called in.
Okay, got it. Well, I like us to introduce each other and for you guys to hear each other's names and say hello, because one of the reasons that we want to do this is not just for the information, to share information, but to also be able to have you guys get to know each other. And that's why we really appreciate that you guys are here, because we're definitely doing this for you guys. You know, this is definitely about you, bringing you guys together and giving you more accessibility to our instructors. Many of whom, you know, don't need to be here, but they are joining because they want to participate and want to be visible. So I think that's a great resource to have on the call, because all of our instructors have backgrounds, various backgrounds, not just in screenwriting, but in, you know, directing, editing, cinematography, producing, like everything. So, so cool. Why don't we get started? Because, you know, everybody, I like to not take up a lot of time and just kind of talk about some things. And mostly, you know, I want to know what you guys have questions about. So I'm just going to start by giving you a quick, you know, backstory of what my experience has been in writing screenplays and finding work. First of all, I'll tell you that the first screenplay I wrote, I thought was absolutely the best thing that anybody had ever seen in the world. And I was probably 24 at the time. And I wrote this screenplay that me and my friend partnered. We wrote it together. We thought it was so great. We got a contact with someone at Saturday Night Live, and one of the readers for Saturday Night Live got our script. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm working with a literary agent in features. And we were like, oh my God, this is such a good opportunity. We gave him our script. He read it. And that's as far as the good news goes. When he read it, he wrote back and he like didn't sugarcoat a thing. He was just like, this is not really a story. This does not really go anywhere. There is no goal anywhere in this story. There's nothing that happens where you're rooting for the character. and they're like, it's really just is a bunch of sketches. That's what he said. It was a bunch of sketches. And I remember it was so hard to hear at the time because it was deflating. You know, you spend a bunch of time on your work, and therein was like my first real lesson in writing, which was you do your work, you put it out there, and you take what you get. You know, there's going to be people who are going to come back and be like, this is great, this is amazing, and they'll have really positive notes. And then there's going to be other people that are going to be like, no, I do not like it at all. And they won't even be afraid to tell you that for some reason. But I think I prefer that more than the person who just tells me, hey, this is great, good work, keep it up. You know, like, you want to know if there's something happening in your work that somebody sees, and you got to take it with a grain of salt. So I kept writing, and mostly I have written screenplays that I then went out and got funding, and then I went and made my films. And that I did with feature films about 5 times. And some of those films are on Netflix, some on Amazon, Apple TV, things like that. Some of my films have had limited theatrical releases, like in New England, it was in like 13 theaters up in that part of the country, or the South, like Florida, well, just Florida. And you know, so you go out, you do things, you just scratch and claw to make things happen. But there's so many ways to get your work out there and to get it seen. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but if you work at it and you make connections with people, the connections that you make with your faculty, instructors, the other students here, like, you never know where people are going to go and what they're going to be doing. And boy, is it important to know people and have good, you know, good connections, you know, for that kind of thing. Any of the other instructors have any experience with putting their work out for the first time and getting some notes back that didn't quite make you feel tingly inside? Anyone? Bueller? Even students, have any of the students put your stuff out there and gotten some feedback?
Yeah, I've always tried to avoid that, John. Yeah.
How do you avoid it?
Well, you know, that's just kind of a joke, but you know, a lot of times I'll just hear this isn't the material that we're looking for. And that's a stab in the heart enough, you know. And yeah, if there's a nice producer, a really kind producer, he or she will give me feedback. And that's amazing because they're taking time out of their day, out of their life to not only read your script, but write notes on it. And so, yeah, it's really painful to get those notes back always, no matter what, because you think your work is perfect, because it is perfect, because you wrote it and it's perfect as it can possibly be on the page, you know. So it's always, for me, very difficult to get feedback from producers, but I take it and I love them for it. And if I could give them gifts back just for reading it and giving notes, I would and probably should, but it's always hard. So
well,
every time.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, it's one thing to put your work out there and have someone kind of give you notes on, you know, or feedback or critique your story and have it be about your story. But if you are getting notes on your story, or someone's telling you, hey, this just isn't, you know, what we're looking for, that is still means that they read it, they looked at it, as opposed to, like, you got to make sure it's pretty solid from a formatting and a spelling and a grammar standpoint, because that's where, you know, you don't want to give, even when you're in a rush, because I'll tell you, most of the time that somebody asks for something or you have an opportunity to give someone a screenplay, you're not necessarily prepared for it. I had a meeting once with a guy named Stuart Kornfeld and Ben Stiller, and he has a production company called Red Hour. And we were pitching a movie, and they didn't like one of the ideas, and then they said, well, do you have anything else? And we talked about this other idea, and they're like, they said, great, is that script done? And I said, yes, but it absolutely had not begun. It was not even ready. And so they were like, great, well, hey, if you can, you know, when you get home, if you can send that to us, that would be great. We'd like to take a look. Well, we went home and we tried, I was so young. We tried to write a feature film in like 3 days, and we did it, but we didn't hear anything back from them. And that was just one of those situations where it's true. Sometimes you don't really want to tell someone that you don't have something if they're interested, you know? You want to be like, yeah, I have that because there's an opportunity there. And if I said it wasn't written yet, might they have still been interested? Might they have said, hey, well, cool, like maybe when you're done, can you like reach back out to us and let us know? And that might have been how it would have gone. But I learned early that I need to always say yes, you know, when people ask for things. And so, you know, that was not a script that was ready to be given to anybody, and certainly nobody on that level. But I felt like I wanted to at least try. And so many times, you know, you might be in the middle of something, you're 3/4 of the way through your story, and someone says, oh, what do you have? Can you send it to me? And then you feel like, well, do I send them a partially written script, or do I just hurry up and finish it? And really, it's probably better to go with no on that. It's probably better to finish your work, focus on your work and get it done and make sure you feel good about it. Because like Sandra said earlier, it is perfect. It's your story, right? But when you give it to someone, it's now about somebody else looking at what that story can do for them. And then it's about how can that change and meet their expectations. And that's where the little producer, screenwriter sort of head-butting competition begins. Depending on where you are, your head is bigger than the other head sometimes, and it's more powerful. So you just have to kind of work that out. But anybody else have anything with just anything about getting notes or critiques and sending things to agents, or hear stories about those kinds of things, or have friends that have gone through that? I mean, Gerald, oh yeah, go ahead, Angelica.
My experience has been a little different because I was already hired. So every time I would write, I would get notes, and they would ask for another draft. And sometimes on television, it becomes like they ask for so many drafts, and that's something that you have to get used to, and you have to take their notes and rewrite the whole thing again. And it's part of the job. So I mean, I was fortunate to be hired, so that was good enough. I knew I had to write and rewrite. So that's part of it.
That's really interesting, Angelica. So did you get specific notes, or did they kind of give you general notes and they just said, oh, do something different, or kind of what was it generally like, specific or more general?
Well, it depended like from who I got the notes. So if it was from because it was educational television, so I had a lot of teachers that were science teachers or math teachers, and they had to make sure that whatever I was showing in the story had that content, right? So it had to comply with the educational part. But there was also someone who knew about story, and they would also give notes on that. Yeah. Okay.
So that must be similar in some ways to working on a show like a cop show or a hospital show, where you have like the creative notes, and then you have like the procedural, kind of like the people who know about being a doctor or know about this, and they give you notes on, well, this person wouldn't say it like this, or you can't say that when you're a doctor, you know, things like that. So I get that. What did you ever get something that was a head scratcher for you that you're like, why do they want to do this to your story? Did you ever have that where you felt conflicted?
Yes, of course, because a lot of like math or science could be completely the opposite of how a story works, and it could be boring. And so, yeah, you have to learn how to combine both the educational part and the entertaining part.
Right. Well, that's very cool. Does anybody have any questions yet of anything that they've heard so far? Just jump on in if you do. Okay. So real quick, so let's talk just about you know, a lot of people are always like, well, I've written a screenplay, like, what do I do with it? So first, let's talk about what you can do with a completed screenplay when it's done, okay? It's a little bit different. Well, actually, it's a lot different if we're talking about a short film screenplay versus a feature, okay? It's hard to have a spec short film script and go anywhere with it other than you have like 3 options, maybe. One, you definitely could try to work with some people that you meet here or yourself and make that film, okay? Then you're able to use that as a calling card or something, or get it into festivals and get exposure. Be like, yeah, I'm a writer, I'm a director, whatever you may be along with writing. The other thing is you could potentially send that to an agent to show them how you write, and people can look at a short film and go, hey, I see good dialogue, I see good visual writing, and they can see all that stuff. But they're still not going to see like, but what does this look like on a feature level? Because that's mostly, right, features and television are mostly what agents and managers and production companies are looking for. They're not looking for short films, okay? So when we're talking about feature films, you have, you know, you learn writing, you go through it, you make a couple films in school. Hopefully some of you, if you're here attending this specific one, it means that you've either attempted to write feature-length screenplays or have an interest to go there in the future, okay? So once you have one written, it's like, what can you do with it? Well, one option is you can get together with some people. You know, again, I never like to do things where, oh, be all things. Sometimes you have to be all things on a production, but it's better when you can work with other people and rely on other people and have a lot of different creative talent coming to support the project. And so you can go and try to raise money to get your film made and make it. You can submit it to competitions. You can submit your screenplay to competitions and hope that you get recognized or win. Some competitions will give you feedback, and that's valuable in itself. You can submit, in some cases, directly to, there are some production companies and some networks that will accept submissions, just kind of like you can just submit. A lot of them don't, but there are some that do. And you have to believe there's a lot of other people doing that. But that's an option, is you can do that. Film festivals also sometimes have a screenwriting component, you know, so they'll, Sundance, many film festivals have like a screenwriting competition where they just allow submissions for screenplays, and they, you know, they'll have a couple winners for that. But you know, you're a little bit, it's like, okay, there's like Warner Brothers and Sony, and you know, they buy screenplays, but typically they're buying them from people who have agents and managers or contacts or actor production companies and things like that. So it's not impossible, but you can go that route if you have the right contacts to do it. But generally, when you're starting out, it's going to be grassroots stuff. It's going to be, I'm writing the screenplay for a competition and I want to get recognized. And sometimes you can get recognized, and then from that, you get a meeting with a manager. And that is obviously a big step, you know, that helps. You can go out and get a film made. Feature films, though, it's really hard to put a feature film together without spending money. The first feature film that I made, we made it for actually $4,000, and this was in 2001. None of us were paid though, so I'm talking about actual money that we spent to rent equipment and to pay for things. And you know, we did okay with that film. We went out and made some money, but it still was this is 2001. We used, if anybody knows these cameras, Sony PD-150 is what we shot this movie on. And but you know, we did it. But from that, we then decided, okay, we're going to make another movie. And then because we got some exposure in New England from making that film, we got in the paper for the auditions for our next film. And I actually held auditions for a movie that I wasn't even done writing yet. And we only did it because I wanted to just put it out there that we were making this movie and hope. I told the reporter, I was like, just make sure you say that we're also still looking for someone to fund our project, by the way. And they wrote that in the article. And sure enough, we have this huge 100+ people are coming to audition to be in this movie, because I loved working with actors that had never done anything before. That's what I liked doing in the first part of my career, was working with people who were like theater background or just had never done anything, like locals, right? And I'm doing the auditions up there on the stage in the front. We were at like I don't know, just some like hall or just something. And I see this guy sitting in the back dressed in like this really nice suit. And he's just sitting back there with his arms, you know, folded. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I was like, is that guy here because he's thinking about investing in our movie? Like, this is what I'm thinking about. And it turned out he was. And you know, we wanted to make it for like $65,000, still very low budget. $65 on most movie sets is spent in about 20 minutes. So for that feature film, 20 seconds, Gerald, is that what you said? 20 seconds. Dune is probably 2 seconds, right?
Dune, yeah, that's
Dune.
spent on Starbucks.
Right, it's ridiculous money. But my point is that when you want to do something, like, so you just got to put the energy out there that you want to do it, and that you got to have a little bit of luck in there too, and you know, you can kind of get the ball rolling that way. But you got to, like, just writing is just, you sit, you just write, and you got to keep writing and you keep working on it. And, you know, you get that screenplay done. And another important thing that you have to know, and I want to see if anybody else has thoughts to weigh in on this, is if you're submitting a screenplay to a production company or to a manager or to a competition, you're going to submit those differently, okay? The same way that if you're going to submit your resume, you have a resume for a job, right? You have this basic resume for you, but then you're going to apply for a job to work as manager at Best Buy. You're going to cater your resume for that job, right? Whatever they're looking for, you want to pull out your experience that fits that job and stick it in that resume. If you were going to work for a production assistant on a commercial for an advertising company that's making commercials, then you're going to make sure your resume fits that. So when you're turning a screenplay into a screenwriting competition versus a manager, let's say, it's going to look very different, because when you turn into a manager, and you're going to have readers, people who are just there, probably interns that are still in college, that are looking through screenplays, and they're the first line of all the screenplays that come into that manager's office. Someone's just sitting there reading through them, and if they see formatting errors, or if they see that it's too long-winded, if they see that the action lines are like 10 lines long, if it's not easy to read, then they're going to pass it off and they're going to move on to the next one in most cases. When you'll even do a little less of the visual writing stuff in that case. It's all about just getting them to read it and get the story in there. Whereas if you're giving it to a screenwriting competition, it's going to be more about the art of screenwriting. And it's going to be more about all of those details and how good is the visual writing. Visual writing, what?
Apple. Do you want apple? Do you want apple?
Do I see the apple?
I'm sorry.
I was like, did some kid hack our meeting? I think some kid hacked our meeting.
We have a bogey.
We have a bogey. But it's just the art of screenwriting. That visual writing is way more important in a competition than it is when you're giving it to a manager. Managers and agents, they don't read screenplays and look at the vision, like the visual aspects of that. They're looking for the quick read that tells them, is this a good screenplay? Does it have all the story stuff there? Does it move? Is it keeping me turning the pages? Whereas people who are judging in a screenwriting competition are a little more pretentious. They're a little bit more educated in screenwriting. So they want to see all the bells and whistles of what a really professional screenplay should look like. And only if they see all that are they going to pass that on in most cases. So sometimes you have to adjust your screenplay for what you're trying to do. And you just have to know, I have different versions of screenplay on my computer right now that are like, this one is for giving straight to a network. This one is for giving to, I don't know, a production company that's just looking for, you know, stuff, or someone who's more versed in like filmmaking terms and whatnot. So anyway, just something interesting. But anybody else have any experience with that kind of thing?
I wanted to comment on that real quick. And as you guys know, like screenwriting is always evolving. Like you're always going to be reading books and reading about formatting and stuff like that and the structure of it. But the one thing you can do right now to impress folks or to get a better hand up is to format your screenplay properly. Make sure everything's spelled properly. Make sure grammar is good, because and I tell people this all the time. If you send your script out and it's not formatted properly, if you have grammar errors and stuff like that, people, a lot of times actors, that's their very first impression of you. Like they've never even met you. They might have talked to you or just met you online, and then you send them that script. And if you can't even properly format your script or properly spell sentences correctly or grammatically do everything properly, how can they expect you to properly make your movie correctly? So I tell them that is the first impression a lot of people have of you, is how well your script is. And that kind of shows how well you're going to treat this project and how well you're going to do. So the better you can do to format your script, the better chance you have of impressing somebody off the bat right there.
Yeah, because it won't make it past the first page if that's there. Honestly, unfortunately, that's the reality. So you want to have somebody, a friend or a family member who is, everybody who writes has somebody that they can give their screenplay to, because you can't edit your own screenplay. At least I can't. I see words. I wrote a screenplay once where I had written, and I have some degree of dyslexia. So I would write the word quick when I was trying to write quit. And every time I wrote it, because it was a bunch of times in this one particular page, every time I read it, it was spelled correctly. I saw it that way every time. And then someone's like, hey, you did this. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I didn't know that. So you'll see it. You'll think you know what words are supposed to be there as you reread your stuff. You'll skip over things because you know it. But someone else who's seeing it for the first time, they're going to see those things right away. So have somebody that is a friend or a family member that can look over your stuff before you hit send, before you hit submit, before you turn it in. I actually think that's a good idea to do also for, when you turn stuff in for school. Always have somebody look it over and just see if they have any, any thoughts about it. But thank you, Trent. That's a very important point. All that stuff is very important. And you're not giving yourself a chance if you don't make sure that those things are cleaned up. So yeah, for sure. Anybody else have anything else they want to add to that or questions?
Now, is there several like databases where there's already like scripts that's already been written that new screenwriters can, I guess, read and learn from, basically?
I think so. Angelica or Sandra, do you want to take that or know of some resources like that?
Yes, you can actually just Google pretty much any script now and be able to find it. There's a lot of sites like Drew's Scriptorama. Some have like funny names like that. And so back in the day, you used to have to know those sites. But now, honestly, just pick a script that's your favorite script and type it into Google, Forrest Gump, PDF, screenplay, and you should be able to find it.
Yeah, it used to be that you had to pay for them, like 15 years ago. It was like you had to pay for them. But I think you're right. Yeah, I think they're more accessible now. But I would definitely focus on what she said, which is think about stuff that you like. So if you're going to go and find a screenplay, find something that represents your interest and the kind of stuff you want to do so you can get familiar with how that stuff is written.
There's a site, IMDb, but IMSDB is all scripts.
Oh, really? Can you put it in the chat?
Yep, International Script Movie Database. Literally.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
I just want to add that our library, LAFS library, also has scripts, and that a lot of the scripts you find online are shooting scripts. So just make sure that you know the difference, because it's not the same as a spec script or.
Yes. If you're more interested in screenwriting, right, the art of screenwriting, then you definitely want to look more at like spec scripts, not at shooting scripts. But if you're more of a kind of director, cinematographer, screenwriter kind of filmmaker person, then you might choose to look at shooting scripts. It's going to have more of that other details of how something's going to be shot or even edited in some cases. It's going to have more details like that, which traditionally would not be in a normal screenplay. So yeah, just make sure you know what you're looking for and you look for the right one. Otherwise, it'll look a little weird to you.
I also want to say on that, when you check out screenplays, just look at a couple different ones, because a lot of different writers have different writing styles and they format them a little differently according to them. And if they're, well known in the business, people accept that as, oh yeah, this is so and so's writing style. It's not formatted traditionally, but we accept it because he's made X, Y, and Z movies and he's a big time guy. So just be careful of some of the ones that you look at, and they might be formatted a little oddly because that's a lot of times the style that they do as well too.
Yeah, people have different things that they do all the time. It's like you can read different books on screenwriting and people will tell you to do subtly different things. They just feel like this is kind of the word of screenwriting, do it this way. Someone else will tell you something a little different. And then, yeah, when you read those screenplays, you will see some of that. I'm trying to think of has anybody seen like a Quentin Tarantino original screenplay, like before it went to anybody else? I'm not asking it because I have. I'm curious.
I've seen one. I don't know what phase it was in though, but
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. When you look at his, they're vastly different than if you would look to read like a traditional screenplay.
I think there's a lot in here.
So
probably, right?
Quentin Tarantino,
probably his rough draft.
Yeah.
But it was vastly different than how you would probably. So people would expect that from Quentin Tarantino, but if you wrote a screenplay kind of in that format and sent it off, people might be like, "This is a little weird. Like, what's going on?" That's why I was saying, just be careful about some of that stuff you look at.
Yeah.
I've seen original screenplays from famous directors that they actually put the thoughts in there when they wrote the screenplay themselves, and they actually had the concepts in the margins, so they knew exactly what they were thinking when they wrote the screenplay, so they know how to portray it visually on screen.
Right. The director doesn't know necessarily how to write in the visual way. So they just put the thoughts of, maybe what the character is thinking or what's happening. And then they were able to translate that into cinematography or whatever. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the actual storytelling element.
Yeah.
So they would write their thoughts about what it is they were thinking about before they wrote the screenplay. And then as they write the screenplay, they'll write their notes in the margins to remind them what their whole thought process was of the storytelling, so they can continue it on their timeline throughout the. Right. So they would just take the pages, write all the notes, and then they start writing the screenplay. It's very weird. I've only seen that like 2 people do that.
Angelica, what were you going to say?
No, Eric had a question on the chat. It says, do you feel that the blacklist is valuable for industry exposure, feedback, or both? Neither. So I've heard a lot of the blacklist, but I don't have experience on that. Anybody else?
When it first came out, I remember being very intrigued by it. And my thought process was, at first I was like, well, I don't want anybody to steal my idea. That was my first thought, which is probably what everybody's first thought would be. Well, I don't want anybody to steal my idea. And then somebody told me, I don't know who it was, but somebody told me, don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. If you write a good movie and it's a good idea, it's still probably cheaper for them to just buy the script from you, than it is to go out and try to get it written, by somebody else. It's more about stealing what I feel like has happened a few times in my career is little things in my screenplays I've seen pop up in movies. And that's weird to me. And it'll be popping up in movies with production companies that I met with who said, we're not interested. And so although they didn't take the movie and just put it up there, they took certain things that I was like, that is crazy that that's in there. And that's not okay. But it wasn't like a direct, it wasn't anything that was crazy for me to be like all up in arms and go banging on doors and stuff. But I think that's what, I think I did put something on the blacklist for a little while. And then I think I removed it. I don't know why I removed it. It was a long time ago because blacklist started I want to say 15 to 20 years ago or something. It was really early on in the as the internet was really getting big for this kind of stuff. So that's my only experience with it. Anybody else have any other experience with that? It's also probably very different now too. Again, it was very unknown to me at the time. But I do think, is the blacklist the one where you read other people's screenplays and give notes? Is that that one? And you sort of, and then people read your screenplay and give you notes, but then it can also be seen by people? Or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, I believe that's the one.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, you know, you have something to put out there. I think it's great. You got to get your stuff out. Like until you are out there doing stuff and you could say like, hey, I'm a successful screenwriter. I'm writing 2 to 3 screenplays a year and selling them. Then you're just, it's your future. So I think you've got to put your stuff out there. You know, pour yourself into your work, put yourself out there, and don't just sit and wait for that to do something. Go and pour yourself into a new story while that one is out there. And that way you'll never feel like, oh, I waited all this time and nothing happened. It's like, no, you didn't wait. You got to work and you kept working on another story while this one was over here. I always look at it like planting seeds. Plant seeds everywhere you can and hope that some of them are just gonna sprout, you know, but keep planting seeds. Don't just plant one seed and wait. That doesn't, you can't feed a family that way, literally and figuratively. So just keep working on it. Any other questions about that? Or any other comments? Another thing that people often ask about is how do you, if you have a screenplay and you want to go out and start trying to raise money for it, like what is the process for that? Like, what do you do? Because if you're just a screenwriter and you're trying to get someone to take your screenplay, then you're looking for production companies or producers to option your screenplay or to buy your screenplay and then to produce it, okay? If you're trying to get your movie made and you're a screenwriter and you want to direct it and you want it to stay your movie, then you definitely, before you start going out looking for money, you need to have your screenplay and a business plan. So it's not something I thought I would write a lot of when I was younger, business plans, because I wasn't going into business in my mind. I was going into a creative industry. But I've had to write business plans for almost every movie that I have made. I've had help at times later, but early on, I had to write the distribution plan and write up, you know, what the potential market success is of this film and why, and who's going to be in it, what the plan's going to be, and where the money's going to go, and what the timeline is going to be. And these are things you have to show to investors. And investors aren't always, what's that show on TV? Shark Tank. That's not what all investor meetings are. Sometimes investors are, hey, Joe has a buddy that, you know, he like sold his company and he's retired. He's like 48 years old. You know, that's just, sometimes it's just like having coffee with somebody and talking to him about your movie. But knowing how to pitch your idea and believing in your story is like number one, because you could take a great screenplay and someone who doesn't know how to sell it, and it is likely not to go anywhere. And you can take a poorly written screenplay and somebody who really knows how to sell it, and it might have more of a chance. So you kind of have to work that way. You've got to be able to show people the passion that you have for your story. You have to be able to show that. I felt like I was really good at getting in the room with people with money and being like, here's what I want to do and here's why I want to do it. And I remember I made a movie in Florida and I was on the beach just walking around while we were in between or something was getting set up. I was directing this film. I didn't write it, I was directing it. I met this guy on the beach, like, what are you guys doing over there? And I'm like, oh, we're making a movie. He's like, oh, that's cool. And we were just talking a little bit and he's like, hey, can I take you and your crew like out to dinner? And I was like, it's like 35 people. He's like, yeah, no, that's cool. We'll go to this Japanese restaurant, and it's a really cool down the street. So we all went. He took everybody out to dinner and paid for it. Turns out he was some guy who was like, literally his company made like gaskets, like something weird, gaskets. And he made millions doing that. And now he was just like a race car driver, just in his older, late 40s. He would just go and race cars on a circuit. And anyway, he's like, yeah, so anyway, I thought I would want to invest in a movie. I want to make a movie. And so I'm like, wow, that's cool. I have, 2 movies that I want to do in the next like year. And then we ended up meeting about it, and he ended up funding half of the film. And that was just like meeting somebody on a beach. So you can go into a meeting with someone in a conference room and sit across people wearing suits. That happens, but you can also just run into people randomly, and you just have to be prepared to show the passion. Just be prepared. If you have an opportunity or someone shows interest in something, you got to jump on it. I don't think it's good to be pushy, but you got to jump on it. And they're going to, most people who have money are going to be savvy enough to ask for a business plan. Okay. And if you don't have a business plan and you want to make your movie and you want it to stay yours, someone else is going to come in and help you work on a business plan, and it's going to become less yours. So just, know that that's an option. It's not the easy option. I've had people who have spent money that they inherited on a movie, and maybe they weren't ready to do it. It's definitely something that you need to really consider, because the excitement of making a film is there's nothing like it. So you can get a little too excited and make poor decisions. So really think about it, talk about it with the people that you love and trust. Here's what I want to do. Listen to them, because some will tell you not to do it, but some will tell you, no, you're ready for this, and here's why. So just make sure you're ready for it. Anybody have questions about that in terms of raising money? I know this isn't the end all be all. This is how you raise money, but we just wanted to have a conversation about it and see if anybody had questions.
There is another option.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
I'll let somebody else go. Let somebody else go first.
Okay.
Okay, this is Anthony Hamilton. So I have a question. How can you tell a legitimate person you're pitching your script to? I mean, what are ways to avoid the someone stealing your script, or to false investors, or somebody's trying to impede on your pipe dream per se?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I guess my assumption always is that it's someone that can potentially lead to money. I mean, I assume that. And it's not like I go and I was never too concerned about somebody stealing my idea and my business plan. It wasn't like I was just throwing things out left and right. It was like really trying to find the right people. And I played the local angle a lot. So like in New England, we were developing a community of filmmakers out there. And this is back before they started making all those movies in Massachusetts, which they have been doing in the last 20 years. It wasn't like there was just so many and I had to worry about that. So I don't know that you just have to, I mean, you got to have some degree of instinct there, but I think you kind of want to tell everybody about the movie that you want to make. I think you're putting it out there to a lot of people, and then you're just going to have to gauge that interest based on, do the people seem legitimately interested? And then you can look them up. Like now it's way easier than it even was 20 years ago. I mean, you can look people up and you can see, I looked that guy up when I met that guy on the beach. I saw the company that he owned, and I was like, how do you make money doing that? But it's just like, how do you make money making Q-tips? Well, guess what? Somebody did. Post-it notes. Somebody made a lot of money coming up with Post-it notes. So, but you look people up, and that's kind of all you can do. And sometimes what you do have to watch out for, I will say, is there will be people who will show interest, and then like they'll keep asking you for stuff, and it's kind of like that situation where you go, look, are you interested or not? Like if you're interested, let's go. If you're not interested, then let's move on. So I think you gotta look out for that. Michael, did you have a question? And then we'll get you, Gerald.
Yeah, well, I was just going to add on to what you were saying. I think it was Blake Snyder and Save the Cat who had talked about that you should go and tell everybody your ideas. You want to get them out there and see what people think. You want to get as much feedback, and you want to see if people's eyes light up. And he said that even no matter if someone steals your idea, it's not going to be exactly the same as what you would do with it. So there's plenty of uniqueness to like what you would do in a movie. And if somebody took your ideas and did something, it wouldn't be nearly the same thing as what you'd plan to do with it. I think that was him. It was a while ago that I read it, but that was just to add on to what you were saying. And then also on what you were talking about a minute ago, there was Mike Rich, the screenwriter. I was researching him a little bit, and he talked about his background as he went to school for business. And he said, it's kind of like a paraphrasing from an article, but he talked about that if you get into the business of Hollywood, or if you just go looking to be like a screenwriter or anything really, that you're walking on thin ice if you don't know the business side of it. And it's just such a crucial aspect.
It is, and that's why I really like the program that you guys are in here, because you're getting a lot of different sides of what you need to know about the industry. And so I think it's a very well-rounded program that you guys are in. So I'm hoping that you're getting all of that while you're here. Gerald, what did you want to add? You said there was another way.
Well, three things. One, knowing how to do a business plan is crucial, because you might, after screenwriting, you might want to become a producer. And that is one of the key things that you need to know, is not just a business plan, but the whole business of the industry. Mm-hmm. The second thing is, if you want to protect yourself, you can always register your feature film script with the WGA,
always,
which is a good way to protect yourself, because they will help you and back you up.
Yep.
The third thing I want to say is the option is, if you have a screenplay for a feature film or anything nowadays, you can either create a sizzle reel or a film trailer.
Love it.
And that is another good way to sell it. If you're starting out, you can always get friends to help you, shoot something, get something that you can put in your press kit, and that will help you. If you can get named talent, either cast or crew, that also bumps up your status and marketability and return on investment, ROI, for the investors. You can look at it that way. So those are some of the things that you can think about. Now, if you're a beginner screenwriter, no final draft. If you don't know that, that's your tool. Just like a cinematographer needs to know how to shoot a camera. It's the same thing. The second thing is also, if you're trying to write a screenplay, even if it's a short film, go shoot it, no matter what. So start practicing, because if you're a beginner screenwriter, trust me, it's not going to be great. So start working your screenplays, write them over and over, and try and get them shot. There's nothing better to telling somebody you're a screenwriter and you have some film to back it up. So
Kickstarter,
that's my
right?
2 cents.
Yeah, Kickstarter, people do little sizzle reels, or they shoot one scene from their movie.
Or GoFundMe. Same thing.
Yeah, GoFundMe. And they just go, hey, here's an excerpt from the scene, from the movie that we want to make. And they start raising money. I mean, there are a lot of ways to do it. So there definitely are different ways, but that's a very good point, Gerald. You can go out and shoot something and use it to show people. Because if I'm an investor and you have a screenplay and you want to direct it and make it, what do I want to see that I can't see by looking at your screenplay? What is
always pick the best scene.
Yeah.
Don't pick the one where two people are just sitting, walking down a street, unless it has some kind of action, emotion, mood, or something that can engage the viewer. That's what you want to show them. So just pick, and you can make that up. It doesn't have to actually be part of the screenplay, but it could be related to it. So think about that too. The creativity in that is really up to you. You're basically creating a sales pitch. So you need to put your best foot forward.
That's how it's done in Hollywood too. So all the best filmmakers are making a sizzle for their features as well. So
and I've shot hundreds
there's no
of
difference.
Them. So
So
Yeah.
Gerald, you've been asked to shoot sizzle reels for people that are trying to get their films made?
Yeah, when I was a cinematographer for 7 years, I shot a lot of sizzle reels.
Okay.
For people who are nobody and people who are established. I've done it for $50 for a sizzle reel, and I've done it for 5,000.
And did you sometimes do it for the money and sometimes do it because you believed in the project?
Okay, it was for the money. No, just kidding.
Okay.
No, it was for both. It
was for
depends. And
both, yeah.
sometimes I did it for free if it was a friend of mine, or somebody on a crew I knew, and I've worked with them. I would do it. I would help them out. You got to understand that the film industry is a small town. It really is. It's a small community. And a lot of us support each other no matter what. So we do a lot of the barter system. And I believe, and I tell all my students this, and I tell all of my fellow crew members this, is barter. You have something that they want. If you're a screenwriter, you can always write a screenplay or write something for them, a scene or something that they can shoot. If they're a director, if they're a cinematographer, if they're an actor, you can always trade something. So try and take the money factor out of it, because then we don't have to worry about that. All we have to worry about is the creativity and the imagination and the storytelling aspect. That's what you want to look for. So that's what I used to use. You know how many free dinners I got?
Oh, you're muted.
This is where your editing classes come so much in handy, because I'm not a fantastic editor, but I have to be when editing sizzle reels. And so, as a writer, this is something like you're not expected to be able to produce, but it's a little bit of a requirement. So take your editing classes serious to do your best to put together a sizzle.
Or barter. You write it as a screenwriter, you find an editor who can edit it, you write it, and then they get the finished product when you get a shot. And now you got your transaction there with no money changing hands.
Yep. Any other thoughts or questions about that? We have a few more minutes left. So any questions or any other comments about anything related to screenwriting or anything else anybody wants to say on the faculty side?
One thing we haven't spoke on is working your way up, which is what I did. So moving to a town like Los Angeles and becoming an assistant to a producer or to an agent, or to anyone, to hopefully get your foot in the door and maybe even move to a writer's assistant position. So it's difficult to uproot yourself, and get to LA, but it's still a possibility, and one that is still really real, to work your way up the ladder and to be able to meet producers and agents and executives, and over time be able to give your script to them. So it's still an option.
Yep, very true. Any other thoughts or questions from anyone?
John, Anthony again.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Well, exposure, is that a good experience and for pay per se for your talent, whether it's editing or cinematography? I'm just asking based on someone with almost no experience per se.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most important things that I have done in my life to make sure that I could keep trying to write and direct films is I learned how to do sound production, post audio, and editing. And I have done those things to make money while I'm working on my own films for free. So you can make money in a lot of different ways in this industry. One of the hardest ways to make money in the industry for just the masses is, I want to make money as a director or as a screenwriter. You can get there, but it does take time to get there. But if you want to make money as an assistant, or you want to make money editing for people, you can pretty much go do that right away. There's a lot of different ways, and you can get connected with people. People need editors. Like the more that you know how to edit and you know your way around some audio equipment and post audio, I'm telling you, those are the things people try to avoid. So that means there's less people that want to do it. It's like wanting to play catcher on a baseball team. Most people don't want to play catcher. If you want to make it to the big leagues, try to be a catcher because you're going to have a lot less competition to get there. So those skills are important. They're employable skills. You can make money doing those things, and you never know how much you'll love it, but it will also help you in your writing too, knowing how to edit, because editing is writing. I believe it's storytelling, directing is storytelling, screenwriting is storytelling. That's the common thread through it all. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
It did. Okay, good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys were mentioning, there's two ways you can go about it. You could try to sell your screenplay, or you could try to, direct your stuff. So out of that, like, typically, wouldn't you make more money trying to keep ownership of the screenplay instead?
So that's a very good point. Yeah, depending on how that goes, like the films that I have written and gone out and produced, I didn't actually get paid a lot for the writing part of it. I got paid for the directing part of it, or I got money on the back end. Okay.
Right.
That's just how that worked. Where I've made the most money screenwriting is where I've done screenwriting for other people. Someone hires me to write a screenplay for them. I have this story idea and they have a one line, and then we meet, and then I write a screenplay for them, and I do 2-3 drafts, I think. I've done that 3 times for feature films. And I've also written as a ghostwriter. And you get paid better money for that because you don't really get any credit for it, or have any ownership creativity wise when the film goes on. So certainly if you hold on to it, you could hold on to it, like if you did what Sylvester Stallone did with Rocky. There's a lot of stories of those kinds of things where people just were like, I'm not going to give up ownership. This is my movie. And there are a few stories where that worked out well, but there's a ton of other stories where that film just never went anywhere. So I think it all goes to when you're starting out and you're trying to get yourself out there. What's important is to get yourself out there so people can see what you are. They can see what you can do. And I believe that if you truly believe you have a future in this industry, writing or directing, then whatever you're doing now is not the best thing you're ever going to do. I believe that. It's the future. Whatever you're doing now, make it great, do the best you can, but something down the road is better. Your next thing is probably better. Your next 2 or 3 things are probably better. And it just keeps going from there. So holding on to something too close because you're worried about ownership, I think it's better to get it out there and let people see who you are and what you have.
Okay, well, I guess I'm saying, well, I know like selling screenplay is an option. So of course, like, I'll probably do that as well. But I guess what I'm saying is too, like, if you sell a screenplay, isn't that like all you get, what they offer you, and then like the rest of the money they make off the screenplay goes to them? You wouldn't make no royalties off it, would you?
It depends on the deal, right? If you,
okay.
It's why we're saying a few people have said, you got to know the business, right? So if you just sign over your screenplay to somebody, then they're saying, hey, I'm going to pay you. Look, I've been paid $500 to write a screenplay before. I've also been paid a lot more to write a screenplay, but $500 did not equate to the amount of time that I put into writing that screenplay.
Right.
But it was just for the $500. It wasn't for anything else. Now, nothing else really happened with that film as it went on. But I learned that, no, if I really believe in what I'm doing, then when I'm making that deal, I'm going to say, I want a deferred payment, which comes out before points are distributed, or I want points on the back end. And that all depends on how you negotiate, which is why it's not the best when you have to do that yourself. It's better when you have someone to do that for you, like an agent or a manager or something. So it's all depends on the deal and how it's set up.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, consult, ask people, ask around, someone's interested in buying a screenplay, there's so many resources out there that will help you through that. But just be careful. I would tell everybody, if you're about to sell something to someone, really think about it. Make sure it makes sense. Don't shoot yourself in the foot though. If it's an opportunity to sell something, you can sometimes just sell something and let it go and move on to other things, but you know, really think about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions before we end?
Yeah, John, real quick
Yeah.
for you. You said that you've taken jobs strictly just for the money to write your screenplays and stuff. Did you have to, when you, what were some, I mean, I guess it'd be kind of tough because it'd be different, but I always hear like in like the film courage videos and stuff that people say never take a screenwriting like as like a job, that you have to be passionate about what you're writing about. So like, do you find something when you like get the idea that you can say, oh, I can do this, or you just like, hey, yeah, this is some money or some experience, or how does that work for you?
For me, I love writing, and it's the most natural thing that I do. Like I'm a better writer than I am a director. Directing to me is very hard. So many things have to go right. When you're writing, it's very much all on the page, you know? So if I could choose to do anything 100% of my time, it would be to just be writing screenplays. If I could just do whatever I wanted. Even though I love directing, it's fun, and there's a lot of cool, exciting stuff that comes with it. Writing is where it's at. So when I've been writing, the best stuff that I've written, I feel like, is stuff that I've either written for myself to produce or been hired to write as far as features go. I have been asked to ghostwrite on TV and on short films. And although it turned out okay, I didn't really care about it. And it's just because it feels weird when you ghostwrite, when your name's not even going to be on it. It's just about the money at that point. And it's okay for it to be about the money sometimes, but I would prefer to be doing something that I really like doing and get paid, you know, what you should get paid, you know, to do some of that stuff. But when it was editing and stuff, that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just did it because I knew how to do it. And so that would help fund me to continue working to get my films made.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think the more versatile you are in anything makes, I mean, opens up the market quite a bit for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you got it. And that's why you guys are so lucky to have the instructors that you work with here. And look at many of them show up tonight to participate and listen in and be here. And I just think that you guys have valuable assets here. So, you know, all I can encourage you guys to do, and all of you who are here, you're already proactive. I'll bet you guys are all good students. I just feel like you probably are. You're showing up to stuff. You're taking advantage of the time that we're putting out there. So we definitely appreciate all of you for showing up. Anybody can feel free to reach out to me if they have follow-up questions or want to meet and talk further about any of this. Just shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to connect with people. They are constantly teaching and dealing with so many students, and I'm dealing with different things and trying my best to support them and support all of you. But I'm certainly a resource here as well if you do need to meet with someone and talk about this stuff. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I'm just going to say, you know, good night to everybody. Thank you so much. Faculty, thank you all for being here and participating and listening in. And to all you students, I really appreciate you showing up. And we hope you have a good time, and we hope to see you at future Industry Insights. Trent, cue the music. That's not right.
That's the Spaceballs theme when they had the princess.
Sure.
That's horrible.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. Bye.